Hi, my name is Dr. Anna Weiss, and I'm the Director of Green Galveston Initiatives of Vision Galveston. And I'm here to talk today about Bioswale in a bag. So Vision Galveston is a collective impact organization started in 2019 to make Galveston the best place to live, work, play, and raise a family. And we do that through collective impact, which means that we work with lots of different partners, community members across all sorts of different sectors to make things happen. And one example of this work that we do is in our Jones Park project. So Jones Park is a park on Galveston Island. It is a playground, and it's also known as Jones Pond because every time it rains, it fills in with water. And this is really unfortunate because there are 2,000 kids that live and go to school within a mile of this park, and it's the only public park that they have. And so it's really important to keep this up and running. And in 2017, the city actually tried to sell the land, but it was put to a vote, and the community said, absolutely not. We want this to stay a park. And so it stayed a park, but unfortunately, because of the flooding issue, there wasn't a lot that was invested in it. And over time, things have deteriorated. And so this is where Vision Galveston came in and said, well, the community wants there to be a park. So let's think about how we can make this park again. And there's a couple of different options. We could just kind of throw some mulch and a new swing set on there and call it a day. But the second that it rains, it's all going to get washed away. And so what we wanted to do was create something that was going to be sustainable and friendly to the environment in the long term, while also making sure that our community has a place to play. And so the way that we decided to tackle this problem was through something called green infrastructure or nature-based solutions. And so what this means is instead of putting in gray infrastructure or concrete and lots of heavy non-porous things, what we're going to put in instead are plants and grasses and soils. And this is going to create the infrastructure that helps to stop our flooding. So we spoke to all sorts of people about this. We spoke to designers, community members. We spoke to the school kids to find out what they wanted to see in their park. And we came up with this really, really amazing design. But one of the things that we wanted to do next is to talk to the community about the design and what it means, because most people have not dealt with green infrastructure, or at least not in a way that they're really aware of. And we want to make sure that people are comfortable with it, because when we go into a community and we say, we're going to stop the park from flooding, they hear that that's because the water is going to go into the street and into their house. Whereas what we're really meaning is we're going to stop the park from flooding because the water is going to very slowly go down into the ground, trickle through, and then be let out into the storm system, the storm drain system. So that's where Bioswale in a bag came in. This is really just one tool out of many of them that we can use to help communicate to the public what nature-based solutions, what green infrastructure is. And the benefit to using a model, this, as I said, is just one way that we can talk about green infrastructure, is that it really gives people a very hands-on, tactical way of experimenting and trying out different ways to deal with a problem. It is also lets people think in a very systems forward way. So you're not just seeing one thing happen, you're seeing the combination of different decisions and different choices working together to give you a solution. And we can also build on top of this in a learning scaffold to include other concepts. And so this is a really great jumping off point if you're trying to talk about green infrastructure to folks that have not necessarily dealt with it before. So what we're going to do now is go through our kits and make sure that we have everything that we need. So as we open up our kits, we're going to find a few different things. The first is a manual in English and in Spanish. You are also going to find a bag, and this is going to be the bag that your Bioswale is going to be carried around in. And then your box with a lid. And within this box, there's going to be a few different tools as well. So you're going to have a measuring cup. This is what you're going to use to pour water onto the model. We're going to have a few small plastic glasses. And these are what are going to collect the water at the end. You have a towel because we're dealing with water, and so we want to make sure that we are clean and not spilling water all over the place. We also have the body of the model itself, and this is in a couple of different pieces. So you have the model. This is where your small plastic cups will go, and this is the water is going to go and collect in this cup at the end. And then on the top of the model, we have these swale covers. So with this on, this is your business as usual park, where you have mostly non-porous surfaces, turf grass, but when you remove them, what you will be able to do is put your bioswale sponge in, and this is going to represent your vegetative surfaces. So these are removable. One thing in the instruction booklet, these bioswales inserts are on sticks, but what we found was those sticks didn't stay very well. However, when your swale insert is in there, if you don't want to pull it out because you don't want to accidentally pull the vegetation, you've got these little holes on the bottom. And what you can do is take one of the little chopsticks that I've included and just poke it, and that'll pop it right out. So you should have a bunch of these little sticks as well. You've got your white shelf bar. That's what's going to hold the model in the box. You also have your rain bridge. This is what the water is going to go into. You have your bag of accessories, so your houses, your trees. The trees are going to stick in. There's little holes that are drilled in the model, and you can stick them there. And then the houses and the playground equipment are actually magnetic, and so you can stick them on here. So this is our playground area. This here represents Harborside. So in Galveston, this was a main road. And then this represents the Galveston Bay. And so this is in Galveston where our stormwater is going to end up draining to. So when you have pollutants in that water, you end up with pollutants and dirt and all sorts of stuff in your water in the bay. Finally, we also have these stickers. And what these stickers are meant to show is the intensity and direction of the rain flow when it's on the surface and underground. And so what you're going to do with these is, on the side, you'll take the back off, and what you want to do is make sure that these arrows on the bottom are draining to the bay, because what you can see here is you've got water pooling, collecting on the surface, and it's not draining down, and so it's collecting more and more, and then it goes down the storm drain and it drains out into the bay. On the other side, you're going to have a sticker as well, and this is with our green infrastructure or bioswale. So you can see that there's still rain falling, but it's not necessarily collecting at the surface. It's going down into the bioswale, where it is very slowly draining and getting filtered out, and eventually it's hooking up with that stormwater system. But because it is happening so slowly, you're not overwhelming it, and you don't have as much water draining out to the bay. And so that's what the size and thickness of these blue arrows represent, is that water that's going out. So the way that we're going to put this together, especially for the first use, is you'll start by putting your white shelf bar on. I would put it a little bit more toward the back, not right in the center of the box, but maybe a third of the way from the back. And then balance the body of the model on top. And you can see that this kind of helps it slope down a little bit, which is going to help with our water flow, but it's still balanced, it's still sitting. Then we'll attach another bridge, and there's two holes that you can stick this rain bridge into. Of course, you'll add your stickers on top. And then you've got your small plastic cups, and this is going to go up in this front area, and this is what is going to catch the water at the end. And you've got three of them. One of them is for your business as usual run, one is for your bioswale run, and one is just an extra in case it gets lost or broken. Once you've got this part set up, you can go ahead and add your accessories, your trees, your houses. We gave you a couple of extras. These are actually from like model train sets. So if there are architecture styles or, buildings, types of cars that you have in your community that you want to add here instead of what we have, you can just get some model train toys and add them on. The same thing with all the trees, if there's a specific type of tree that you have. And then to make these vegetated bioswales, all that we did was take sponge, and there's a couple of extra in there, as well as some of these extra foliage pieces. This is just fake flowers that we got from Walmart, the 99-cent store. And again, you can find things that maybe look a little bit closer to what you have in your neck of the woods if what we've provided doesn't exactly fit. All right, well, now that we've got our model set up, I'll go ahead and show you how to use it. And to do that, I'm actually going to swap this out, and I'm going to bring in our fully put together model so that we don't have to do zoom in for the purpose of. All right, so this is what our model looks like when it's all put together. We've got our trees, our apartment buildings, our stickers and everything on there. And we've got some extra sponges on the bottom, just to ignore that. And so what we're going to do is fill up our cup with water. And when you pour the water in, I recommend pouring it really in toward the center. If you go too much to one side or the other, the water is going to just build up there and spill over. And instead of falling evenly across your surface and falling into or across these bioswale covers, it's all just going to fall on one side. And that's not what we want. And so we want to pour it sort of in the center so that it can spread out nice and even. And then the water is going to flow down, flow through the and get caught up in this. Some of it is going to spill over the sides. This is not one complete solid piece. It's been put together, and so you might have a little bit of things leaking through. But most of that water, especially if you have your swale covers in, so your business as usual, it's going to fall over the top. It's not going to get absorbed because you have this non-porous surface, and it's going to fall into the bay and drain, and you'll end up with a cup full of water. So this is your business as usual when you've just got concrete, turf grass, parking lots, whatever. But let's see what happens when we put our bioswales in. So we're going to take our covers off. Go ahead and we're going to put the swales, the vegetated swales in. And so you can see we're just sticking those in here. I'll give you a sense of what that looks like. So now we've got lots of vegetation, and make sure that you switch out your cups. I always forget to switch out my little cups. Put a fresh one in there. And then when you go ahead and you pour your water into the model, it's going to come down, and some of it is going to, come fall down the side, collect in the bay and drain. But most of it is actually going to get caught up and drain through these swales. And so when you're done and you take your cup, if you look at it at the end, this cup with your bioswale version is going to have much less water in it than your business as usual version. There are ways that you can modify this as well. So if you want to show how, for example, pollution moves with stormwater and can pollute the bay, you might put things like glitter, sparkles, sprinkles, little pieces of sand or dirt that can get washed out. And usually what I like to do, one thing to make sure that you do actually is between runs, make sure that you pat down the model, and this way you don't have water that's already pooling on the surface that's going to get included in your next run. And this is really important too if you're putting, for example, sand or dirt or sprinkles on top as well. You want to make sure that you get all of those old ones off before you go ahead and start again. A couple of other tips and tricks when you're using this. One thing to be aware of is that this is a model that uses water, and if you put it back in the box and seal it up while it's wet, it will grow mold, it'll get kind of yucky. And so what I like to do when I'm done is I like to just take all of the little pieces out, take everything off, lay out the towel, and I'll just let the pieces dry on my desk overnight or over the weekend, and then they're dry enough to go ahead and pack up and put away. Another thing to be really aware of, these are 3D printed. They're made by a local artist, but they're made of a plastic material. And if it gets too hot, so for example, if you are in Southeast Texas in the middle of the summer and you put it right in your car window in the sun without any protection for several hours, we have found that the pieces will start to bend and warp and melt a little bit. So definitely be careful. Don't leave it, baking in the sun or in the heat. It's good for a little while, but I wouldn't mess with it too much. Make sure that everything is dried off. And then when you're storing it to carry it around, it's pretty solid, but I also just like to put this measuring cup on the bottom as I'm packing it up, and that helps to keep it safe from getting like knocked around too much. So those are just a couple of tips and tricks for using the Bioswale in a bag. I hope you all really enjoy this model and get a lot of use out of it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'd also love to hear about how you're using it in your classroom, or with the groups of folks that you're talking to about green infrastructure. Thank you so much.